Thank you for joining me today. It's Brian Gubernick, and welcome to the No Days Off podcast, where we believe that every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. Last week, I got a text from this super high achieving, yet younger entrepreneur, a guy who's doing some insanely crazy things so early in his career. It's truly special. You don't see this sort of thing often. And he sent me over a text and he said, "Hey, you don't have to respond to this tonight, but I'm sitting in my truck right now. It's the end of the day. It's been a really solid week, but I'm so stressed out that I want to puke." And he said, he goes on further to say, "I'm constantly fighting the feeling that I'm not doing enough. I'm not sure if this is normal, but I'd really love your feedback." And I read that text and processed it. And believe it or not, I kind of smiled. Certainly not because of his pain. I do not wish that upon anybody. But I smiled because I knew exactly what he was describing. I knew exactly how he felt, that progress, that feeling you get where progress and pressure mixed together into something that almost feels toxic. Where the success that you fight for, you strive for, it actually doesn't make you feel lighter, it makes you feel heavier. So I actually told him in my response, "Hey, welcome to a very exclusive club. One that you shouldn't be too proud of, but of which you're now an official member." See, I earned that membership card early in my career. I joined that club at the very start of my career, and I'm fortunate to have. See, when my business started clicking and I started making a couple bucks, I thought I'd finally feel a sense of relief. Like I had just gotten my butt kicked and wasn't all that certain or sure of myself and my ability. And when things started working and I had a few dollars all of a sudden, I thought like that would be like this pressure that came off me. And instead, I would wake up every other night, in a panic of sorts about emails I hadn't answered. Sometimes I'd actually get out of bed and start working at 2 a.m. because I was thinking about those emails. On my own honeymoon, I would get up at 3:30 in the morning, 4 a.m. every morning, just so I could crank out 4 or 5 hours of work before my wife opened her eyes. Because I didn't want anybody that was working with me to know I was gone. At one point, I had actually developed this pain in my clavicle that I thought was heart related. And after a bunch of tests, the doctor told me it was just stress-induced heartburn. I later went to see a natural doctor, and he said I was living in this permanent fight or flight mode. And he hooked me up to these machines that monitored my brain waves, and then he gave me supplements to help me try to calm down, settle down. None of that stuff worked though. None of it worked until I began to change the way I was thinking. See, I would get pretty heated. I would yell at people for no reason. I obsessed over being the first person in the office and the last one to be out of the office. It actually gave me stress if anybody beat me in the office or left before me. Or left after me. I made a bunch of money and I still felt like I was way behind. And that's when I learned that ambition without perspective is a prison. Ambition without perspective is a prison. I think there's a blessing and a curse here, because here's the truth. That anxiety, that restlessness, that never enough sort of feeling, it's also part of what makes people successful, some of us. For some of us, it's the engine. But when you never take your foot off of the gas, that engine will burn out. And so it's a blessing and a curse. The blessing is that it drives you to get to places that others just won't go. And it's also a curse in that you don't know how to stop once you arrive. High achievers love the chase. Some of you are probably nodding your head right now. But a lot of high achievers, well, we forget to enjoy the view. We measure progress almost by exhaustion instead of fulfillment. So I booked a call with this individual, and here's what I told him. And it was based 100% on my personal experiences, the things that I did right and the things that I wish I would have done sooner. First, I said, I think you really got to work to prioritize your life and be deliberate in this. Develop or define your life plan. You can't treat everything as equal. Your business, health, relationships, faith, experiences, charity, we could go on and on with your respective components of your life. They all demand attention, but they can't all have that attention at the same time. So you actually have to decide what matters most right now and deprioritize those things that matter less right now. Doesn't mean you can't come back to it, but we've got to figure out what's most important and work our way backwards from there. When you give everything equal weight, you're going to guarantee imbalance, and you're certainly going to guarantee yourself some burnout. So where this individual is at in his life, it's his health, it's his significant other, and it's his business. And those things are coming before his social circle and some other things. And that's just the chapter that he's in. But he's got to get clear on that priority. Number two, I let him know, you know what? You've got to become a different person. See, you can't go and set bigger goals and then go aim to achieve those goals, but still be the same person. It doesn't work that way. The habits, the mindset, the systems that got you to where you're at right now, they're not going to get you to where you want to go. So you've got to become a different version of you, and that's going to take time. It's going to take time to evolve. So you got to be patient with that process, because growth is not going to be about more effort at this stage of the game. It's actually about transformation. And any sort of transformation almost always feels pretty uncomfortable. And then the third thing I told him, you got to learn to say no. And in my opinion, this might be the hardest one. It was the hardest one for me. We all know that every yes you say is a withdrawal from your energy bank. In The Tribe of Mentors, the book that Tim Ferriss wrote, he talks about the power of saying no strategically. When you say no to something good, you create space for something great. High achievers think that they can outwork their way through everything. But if you truly decide to scale and get to this whole nother level, you need a more mature version of that success. The mature version of success is selective effort, not endless effort. So you've got to learn to say no. And so, when we talked around the strategies of saying no, like literally saying no, but things like, turning off your phone and accepting the fact that you can't get calls so you can focus on the thing that's most important, or eliminating certain relationships, or at least putting them on the back burner so that they can't actively pull you away from the things that you say are a priority to you. So again, number one, prioritize your life deliberately. Number two, start working on becoming a different version of yourself, become a different person. And then number three, learn to say no. Now, what I wish I knew then, so many things. If I could go back and talk to the younger version of myself, the one that had that pain in his clavicle and the sleepless nights and the shorter temper, I'd probably tell him, hey, you don't have to suffer in order to succeed. Instead, you have to prioritize, you have to evolve, and you have to protect your peace. I'd tell him that rest is not a weakness, that slowing down to think is actually super strategic. It's not laziness. And that it's possible to be both driven and healthy at the same time. And most importantly, I'd probably tell him that ambition should enhance your life. It should not consume it. So to this young, high-achieving entrepreneur, and anyone else who recognizes themselves in the story, again, I say welcome to the club. But unlike the one I joined several years back, you don't have to stay here. Ambition isn't the enemy. Lack of balance is the enemy. The goal isn't to stop striving. I think it's to learn to strive with a bit more wisdom. So tonight, before you go to bed, write down these 3 questions or answers to these 3 questions. First, what actually matters most to me right now? Next, what version of myself do I need to become to get to where I'm going? And then lastly, what am I saying yes to that's costing me too much peace? Answer those questions honestly. This exercise is certainly not going to fix everything overnight, but it's the first step towards freedom from the constant feeling of not enough. Because again, success shouldn't make you sick. It should make you incredibly grateful. That's all we have for you today, the No Days Off podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. So let's get after it.